All right, Texans fans, you find yourself at 3-3. You're sitting here and you're coming off the bye week. There has to be a ton of enthusiasm. There has to be a ton of excitement. There just must be. And so today we are going to talk about how you've gone from the idea that you'd be sellers, the idea that you'd stand pat at the trade deadline, to all of a sudden there's this talk about, are the Texans going to be buyers at the trade deadline? And if they are, where should they buy? So there's a few different ideas. So here's what I want to do. First, I want to talk about what the GM, Nick Caserio, was talking and what he said that makes you believe that, maybe we are buyers. And then we are going to talk about four premier players that have been associated with Houston. And let's be honest, any team that's buyers around the league, it's not just you, it's been the Lions, it's been everybody. But we're going to talk about these players and see if the Texans want to give up something for one of these guys. So I would like to talk about that. But first, before we do that, hey, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We do a ton of Texans content, but also we just like to do media markets that don't seem to be nationally recognized. We love the NFL. We're Lions fans, and we like showing some of the love. So if you're not on ESPN all the time, that's okay, because you get to watch us. So here's what Nick Caserio said. He said, if there's something externally we think could have an impact, we'll look into that. If there isn't, then we won't. There's also a financial component. And here's where things get a little spicy. Here's where things get a little bit interesting. He said, we have a pretty good working budget for the rest of the year. We could take on a certain contract. We try to make good decisions. I love that he said this, because basically he's like, yeah, we might not, who cares, right? But that's what every GM is going to say. If it works best for our team, we'll take on a contract, or we'll trade for a player. But then he actually went on to say, we have a little room in the budget. Like, in other words, we've been smart with the budget. So here are the players that you're looking at. They've been linked to a rumor for a third round pick with Cortland Sutton. And then I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, like, well, why would they do that? I mean, why would they do that? Like, they have a good wide receiver room. I don't think Cortland Sutton is a need, or like a Jerry Jeudy or something like that. And I think what they can do is, what you've realized now with the Texans is that you're ready to compete a lot sooner than I think you originally guessed you might be. So because you're sitting there, because you're able to compete so new and so right away, why not trade something big? And by the way, when you traded for Will Anderson last year, when you traded for, I think, what was it, the third pick, so you could draft Will Anderson, you gave up your first round pick and, what was it, a third round pick? But you have that in an earlier trade with the Browns. Thank you, Deshaun Watson. Who would you rather have right now, by the way, Deshaun Watson or CJ Stroud? Let me think about, okay, CJ Stroud. By the way, let's ask that question early on. How happy are you with him? And how happy are you that you aren't dealing with the dumpster fire that is Deshaun Watson right now? I'm not saying he didn't do great things in Houston. I'm just saying I wouldn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. So here we have, and I know, like, we've talked about this. We have the Browns that we talk about on this channel now too. But man, oh man, that's getting ugly over there. So let's talk. Hey, squirrel, I just completely went off track. But you're a team that can compete now, and you can trade a first round pick that you got from Cleveland, and you don't even have to worry about how good your team is this year and how good of a draft capital you're giving up. Like, I mean, what if your team ends up making a run and it's like, it doesn't even matter. So you don't even have to worry about that. You just have to worry about what the Browns do, and that's not in your control. So here's four names, and it's all at the same position. It's all edge rushers. Right now, you have Jonathan Greenard, and you know who your other edge is, right? You have Will Anderson. And here's the thing that I think about. I think about, there are certain teams that have won Super Bowls because of phenomenal D-line play. And one of the ones that I can think of recently, or just because they have game records, and there's teams that have won Super Bowls, or just teams that are very, very good. You got Bosa in San Francisco. I think about recent history. You had Peyton Manning, who had half an arm left because of all the neck problems that he had. So you have Peyton Manning, who can't throw the ball more than 30 yards, and somehow the Denver Broncos are still winning a Super Bowl. Why? Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. So you could technically get something in a similar state to that by keeping Will Anderson and trading for one of these four players: Chase Young, Montez Sweat, all right, Brian Burns, or Danielle Hunter. All right, Danielle Hunter. So let's talk about each one of these guys and what you're getting out of them. Chase Young first is probably the best sack specialist out of all these. He's just been injured a lot. He is in the final year of his contract. All right, he's in the final year of his contract, and his estimated market value right now is $18 million a year for 4 years. So you're going to be paying him about $72 million for 4 years after this if you want to retain him on your team. But also, please remember, he's a guy that has done some pretty decent things. But it's more, all right, how do I want to put this? He's been hurt a lot, and I get that. All right, but this year, he already has 6 sacks. He has 6 sacks in 6 games. He has 6 sacks in 6 games. All right. That is actually tied for the most he's ever had in a single season. So this is kind of the highest risk, highest reward. He's only 24 years old. Then you can go to the other side of it to his teammate, where you go with Montez Sweat. So Montez Sweat is 3 years older. He's 27 years old. He's been playing a little bit, not a ton longer, but a little bit longer. And he's just a guy who's consistently gotten 7, 8, 9 sacks every single year. 7, 8, 9 sacks every single year. He does pretty good on run defense. He's pretty good in pass rush. And he would just be a really good complement to Will Anderson on the other side. He's multifaceted. He does a good job. When you look at his contract, he also is in the final year of his contract, and the market value based on Spotrac, all right, is $16.6 million per year. So he might be just a little bit cheaper than Young. He has had more production than Young, but he doesn't flash as heavy as Young does. He's a little bit older than Young is, and you just have to decide, like, are you happier with Montez Sweat, or would you rather just keep Jonathan Greenard on your team, who's having a great season with 4 sacks and overall, like, just playing pretty darn well and coming to the end of his contract as well. All right, the next person that we can look at is Brian Burns. This dude is a stud. He's a stud, but he is more of a pure pass rusher. He's only 250 pounds. He can drop back in coverage if you need him to, but he is a phenomenal pass rusher, and you're going to pay for him to be a phenomenal pass rusher. Based on Spotrac, they are saying, based on his production and similar players to that, he would demand about $24 to $25 million a year. $24 to $25 million a year. Is it worth that? This is a guy who over the course of his career has had 5, 11, 12, 12, and 8 sacks. He's really good. And then your final one is kind of the interesting one, which actually might make the most sense, but it's also the oldest player, and then it's Danielle Hunter. You're not going to pay as much for him. He's going to be a good player for you. He's going to get after the passer. He wreaks havoc, and he has been very, very good. He's been very good. Throughout his career, he's had 2, not 1, but 2 15 sack seasons. That was in 18 and 19. And then in 2021, he only had 6. And then in 2022, he had 12. And this year, in 7 games, he has 9. Like, really, really good. He is a good player. And he knows that he's a good player. His contract's really weird. I don't even know how to understand it. I don't know if he's still under contract next year or but he has no base salary, so I think it's just dead money that's on the Vikings because I think they did void years on him, so you'd have to be re-signing him. There's all this weird stuff. But anyways, which one of these players do you like most? Do you think you should be going after another edge rusher? Do you think you should be going after a corner? There's a lot of mid-level corners, but there are premium edge rushers out there. I think if you have a team going forward with two premium edge rushers, you have a rookie quarterback. Pay an edge rusher. Give him a 4-year contract. That's why you have a rookie quarterback. That's why you have a rookie other edge rusher in Will Anderson. Like, you can pay all of these people because you're not paying the quarterback. So pay them, and by the time their contract's done, then it'll be time to pay Stroud. Then it'll be time to pay Anderson, and you move on without them. It's a no-brainer to me. So yeah, I would be going for it. I would 100% be going for it. Let me know what your thoughts are. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.